Well, it's time to discuss the finer points of strategy. My orientation is locked. Oh, oh. Well, isn't that lovely? Okay. So I'm going to give it a couple seconds to see if anybody joins us while I get my coffee and get ready. Because it's been an interesting hiatus. You know, every now and again I test a theory. How bad does it fall apart? Just how bad does the chaos just fucking take over when I just stop making videos? When I stop bothering, when I stop fighting demons. When I stop fighting demons, do they act out? Does shit happen? Well, it's been about a week or so since I made a video. And in this past week, we've had a gigantic wave of migrants show up on the south border. We've had attempted bombings. We've had a synagogue shooting. We've had some massive assaults. Let's just say if I wanted to set some sort of a bar as for confirmation of this theory, that if I stop giving a fuck, shit spirals out of control, I think the past week or so has met that bar. But then again, we've done this before. Pretty much the same damn thing happened. And it wasn't quite the same time of year, so it's not just like a seasonal thing, you know? So I was going to make, and I think I'm going to make like a little theme of this, videos with singular word titles. So I could just discuss every aspect of that word and how it relates to the current state of things. Well, strategy. Tactics, if you will. And yes, I know I'm Bugs Bunnying the fucking strategy. I can say strategy if I want to. I like to say strategy. Speaking of that assault between the little Trump groups, between the pro-Trump people and the Antifa. Oh, Antifa. He loves to say that, doesn't he? He loves saying that word, doesn't he? Jordan, your like has already disappeared. It's 0. It was 1, and now it's 0. All right. When I go to YouTube headquarters, with a 3-foot long double header dildo and just start beating people to death with it? Everybody will know why. It's 3 foot maybe a 2-foot long double header dildo. I wouldn't want to give myself too much of a strategic advantage. So a 2-foot long double header dildo. Beat them all to death with it. And they're gonna like it and ask for more. Okay, sorry. Maybe not. Inconclusive data. They may or may not like it and ask for more when I go to YouTube headquarters with a 2-foot long double header dildo and just start beating people to death. They may or may not say, "Thank you, sir, may I have some more?" And I'll say, "Call me governor." Psh. If anything, you can't say I'm not funny. Okay? You just can't. Well, you can. You just be lying to yourselves. It's something, you need to have, like, a spiritual awakening about. He is funny after all. Maybe that's like the one secret trick into getting into heaven. Realizing, it's a fucking joke. I get it. And then you get to go to heaven. The long dong of justice. Yes. These fucking people here. Now, I suppose I should get it out of the way and mention it in passing, even though I've mentioned it over and over again. One of the main reasons why my channel is suppressed is simply to perpetuate ignorance. Okay? Now, you would think that some crazy guy who thinks he's Jesus would have to, like, reach. Would have to say something pretty far-fetched. Would have to cite examples that were maybe non too compelling, maybe revealing facts that weren't really worth revealing. If you've ever taken any time to research false prophets, to investigate what the fuck is wrong with these people, what are they doing? Are they full of shit or what? You ever just taken your time to just see how full of shit they were? What you might have noticed is that these people all fall into a specific series of categories, each one of them completely fucking useless. And, well, what I noticed, what's, made this channel, is that all of these fuckers, no matter what sort of truth they reveal, first of all, it's never about Russia. The entire Cold War to them was all made up by Western people. Yep. And the Rockefellers were running Russia the entire time. Hmm. Oh, yeah. And the Jews. Don't forget the Jews. Don't forget the Jews. Oh, wait. Was Rockefeller a Jew to them? But they, whether it's people actually claiming to be prophets or whether they're claiming to be truth seekers like Alex Jones, the shit they say ranges from outright lies to unverifiable nonsense. And they take their outright lies and their unverifiable nonsense and they mix it with a few things that actually line up on proper dates. And oh, conspiracy! Fucking idiots. Now, me, the crazy guy who thinks he's Jesus, I'm gonna reveal an outlandish truth that, oh, you might have to have a fucking 10th grade education to verify. Yep, 10th grade. 10th grade is when I learned it. Apparently, Fox News viewers don't have 10th grade educations. Whoa. I look like a fucking Andorian. It's General Shran! Okay, sorry. Having fun with the remnants of the hair. Before I make a total tangent into how much I've been enjoying Voyager lately, let me just tell you one little thing that proves how ignorant Fox News viewers are. One word. The word that Trump likes to say. Have you guessed what it is yet? Antifa. Have I said it yet? I think I already said it. Antifa. Oh, Trump loves his little Antifa. Now, first of all, I don't mean to insult any individuals who have found themselves on the side of Antifa or in the group of Antifa. It was kind of a poor strategic move on your part, and it reflects vast amounts of naivete considering the current situation. But the basic sentiments, I agree. Fascism is bad, right? Yeah. We can all agree with that. Well, unless you voted for Trump. Apparently, people who voted for Trump think fascism is good. Like YouTube. The people that run YouTube, they think fascism is good. But the thing is, in 10th grade, you might have learned this word. It's not something that should be foreign to your vocabulary. But nonetheless, the freshman high school dropouts that watch Fox News, apparently, when they reached their sophomore year, this was one of the questions that was just too hard for them. Oh, I gotta stop going to school and go work for my daddy. See, in a nutshell, just to speak plainly, Antifa is a Russian psychological operation. Okay? And you'd have to be a naive little fucking schoolgirl to doubt me on that. Okay? You would have to literally have no understanding of what's going on in this country to doubt me on that. Or, like YouTube, you'd have to be part of the cover-up. You see, Antifa exists to oppose Trump. You see, they can't let people like me be the face of the opposition. They can't let Christians in churches all over this country who are appalled at everything about Trump and Fox News. You can't let them be the face of the opposition. You have to use Antifa, who exist for one purpose. And if you've been caught up in Antifa, you've been a slave to this purpose. You are motivation for the Fox News viewer to keep watching and keep voting for Trump. Antifa. And all it takes is fucking complete ignorance on your part. All it takes is complete ignorance, and somebody's gonna, oh, Antifa, oh, bunch of, oh, well, what is even their fucking, what, like, because it sounds Latin? I mean, the biggest disconnect in all of this is, oh, the reason why Republicans and Democrats don't get along so much is because Democrats were supposed to be influenced by the Russians. Yeah, that was the thing. You're all a bunch of communists. They're all communist sympathizers, socialist sympathizers. And like I said, one of the reasons, one of the truths, the basic fucking things that you need to know to understand reality on just a basic level, just to be able to form a strategy on how to respond on a day-to-day basis, you need to understand. All the far left shit was being coordinated by Russia before the election. All the far left anti-Hillary stuff, all the Bernie baby stuff, that was all getting helped by Russia too. And essentially anybody who voted for Bernie or for Trump fell into a very simple trap. They fell for a very easy to understand strategy, an obvious strategy. They let the most simple tactics consume them. And now, thanks to their irrational phobia of Hillary Clinton, given to them by Russian and Russian-affiliated propaganda, and by Russian-affiliated propaganda, I mean right-wing propaganda, or far-left propaganda. It all comes from the fucking Kremlin. These actors that they hire, they're not that smart. And neither are the stock photos that they use on their multiple accounts. It's a very simple tactic. It's just called running opposition. You run the opposition, you control everything. Because, you got your supporters. Then you have the people who oppose you. If those people are both making strategic moves that will, you know, cement your rule, the people who are neither opposed or against are going to be cowed into silence. So you have the far right people. Oh, they all think Trump's going to, you know, save the white race or whatever. Even though the Russian military is about 41% Muslim. They're going to, you know, Russia's going to save the white people. Oh, yeah, sure. You know, okay. I'm not going to go there because, you know, speaking historically and actually mentioning facts might be construed as racism against people who aren't a race. Russians aren't a race. They're not even real white people, okay? The cultural dispersion that has created the modern perception of a Russian, that is the people that look white. You had a bunch of Nazis that fled there after World War II. You had a bunch of German speakers that existed there beforehand. But that is a very small part of the population. Most of the white people that exist in Russia. I'm not talking about Ukraine, I'm talking about Russia. The ones that aren't Chechen Muslims, okay? That's just Caucasian Muslims. Their ancestors were largely stolen. They're kidnapping victims. Mostly from Sweden. And whatever blonde hair, blue eyes, beautifulness that you see coming out of Russia comes from Germany and Sweden, not Russia. Okay. Now, while the average person would find what I'm saying to be sort of incomprehensible and not really understand why I'm mentioning it, the fact of the matter is, this is yet another reason why this broadcast is suppressed. Because I could actually speak sense to people who are, well, either racist or at least, you know, you can't really say somebody who wants white people to continue to exist to be racist. But, you know, if you want to preserve your culture and your culture is quote unquote dominant, you're racist, right? The fact of the matter is, some degree of cultural preservation is just fucking fine. But people need to keep in mind, when you act like pricks, your culture isn't worth preserving. But of course, I've given lesson after lesson that proves that it's mostly Russian propaganda that has convinced people that white people alone are responsible for things like imperialism and colonialism and slavery. It's just not fucking true. But if you're a skinhead, if you're a Klansman, you believed all the bullshit that they told you about you. See, white people isn't a thing. There are no white people, just like there are no black people. There's People with various levels of pigmentation, various degrees of family mixtures. Some less mixed than others, obviously. But, you know, to be European used to actually mean something. And it wasn't that you were white. White people, newsflash, didn't come from Europe. Oh. Funny that. Now, the first thing I'm going to say that you can't just look up in a fucking 10th grade history book is one of those things that is exclusive to this channel, one of those pieces of information that only I seem to have, but that rather than be allowed to have a debate on the subject has caused my YouTube channel to be silenced and suppressed. And I'll just get the one person for a little while. Oh, just the one person for a little while. Europe used to be an intercultural society that was nothing like a melting pot. It was a society in which different cultures honored each other, accepted each other for their differences, embraced each other's differences even, saw value in the different roles and skills and tendencies, basically, for all the different cultures that used to live there. But you see, when Europe and the surrounding areas existed in this state, humans weren't as, let's just say they weren't as obviously the dominant species on this planet. Most of the world was untamed, to say the least. But we're talking about a civilization that hasn't existed for over 2,000 years. And I'm speaking, of course, to people who have been educated about the past 2,000 years in a completely dishonest way. The way you've been taught history is profoundly ignorant. You see, I'm a reincarnated person, okay? That's how I know what I know. That's the reason why shit don't get by me is because I have thousands of years of experience. And it's very hard to come up with something new to me, okay? But I had some neighbors over earlier, and I was talking to them about how, you know, if you get reincarnated over and over and over again, and every single time there's an enemy of all of humanity that always comes from the same fucking geographic area, in every single one of those lifetimes, that might start to be the thing that you remember. It might start to be sort of an instinct, like, wait a minute, there were some fuckers, and they were that way. That's a very instinctual, very basic thing that a soul should have no problem remembering. You know, say, well, let's just take like a purely sci-fi speculative look at a situation like this. Um, Say you're like an like a government victim of some sort of weird, like an MK Ultra subject, okay? And you go through some horrible shit in this place that they kidnapped you and took you to, okay? And they erase your memories. But then one day, passing through accidentally, coincidental scheduling with a different event, and you wind up in that fucking town. You wind up in that same little area where you were kept as a fucking slave mind control victim and tortured. And they erased your memories. But you go back to this place. And your instincts are going to tell you something is fucked up here. And your palms will sweat. And you get nervous and jumpy, and you might not know why, but you really want to leave. You don't have to remember. A threat to your survival. To know that it's a threat to your survival. Now, myself personally, as I've stated, I have as clear a memory of the underworld. I have as clear of a memory as passing from the previous life into this life as I do of whatever happened before my last nap. In fact, probably a bit clearer. Oh no, about the same level of clear. It took me a minute. Oh yeah. What did I do earlier today? But man, I've had this very deep level of understanding of things since I was younger than any such logic should have developed in my brain as a human child. I remember, comparing myself to other people at the age of 4 and 5 years old and just thinking I need to keep quiet about all this stuff because they wouldn't understand. And of course, I wasn't sure about any of it. It all seemed rather overwhelming. And basically because of brainwashing, I had to adapt to my strategy on how much I admitted to being gifted, psychic, clairvoyant, what I could see, what I could sense. I had to keep that all to myself. Because people were told that was evil. People were told that You can't be a prophet anymore. You just can't. The only prophet that's allowed to come back is Jesus. And when he comes back, everybody's going to know it all at once. Because he's going to be up in the sky in a magical way. Not that the earth is flat and everybody can see it because it's up, but just because it's so magical and so powerful that Jesus' face is going to be everywhere no matter where you look up on the planet. That's what I was fucking taught in church. When Moses led Israel out of captivity, how did Moses come? Did he appear as a giant cloud of God fart vapor? Like, was there some sort of magical cataclysmic thing and he just appeared in a, like one day they were walking around and like a Shelby Cobra appeared out of nowhere and the hood opened up and Moses came forth? See, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because I'm pretty sure Moses displaces a little more than 427 cc's. Or cubic inches, excuse me. Now, Moses was born. Moses was essentially a genetic anomaly. Ordained, fated, genetic mutation, an anomaly, a person who was preordained with certain talents, propensities, thought patterns, gifts, if you will, that led him to see what God wanted him to see and little else. But he wasn't a magical fucking apparition. Noah, born. Isaac, Abraham, Jacob, Jesus, John the Baptist. Very handsome guy. Not magical things that just came down from the sky. Everybody listened to them. And do you know why? You know why God doesn't send men in that way? Because it's fucking stupid. That's why. Because God's not as stupid as you are. No, shut up. Well, let me just explain a little further. You see, not only is free will kind of at stake, and that's something that cannot be evaded logically when you think about it. I'll get into that a little more. I'll go ahead and list the other thing. It's about what people deserve. Okay? Now, to make such an event uh, have causality, okay? Like, for there to be any fucking rational reason for God to have such an interaction with his creation. His creation should be doing everything right already. Okay? Now, you see, what I mean by that is let's see, how do I want to explain this one? I think I should have gotten more coffee at the beginning of the broadcast like I had planned to. Let me see if there's any in my wife's cup. Oh. Oh. Ho, ho, ho. There we go. Okay. So, I guess I'll just use myself as an example. Okay. Now, I think it's pretty obvious. Most of humanity isn't quite ready for what I have to say. Picture exactly why. Between racial prejudice, between chauvinism, between just lack of enlightenment, between inability to let go of people's selfish ambitions. People in general, most people, they don't deserve what I have to offer. They haven't shown the strength of character, of spirit. Now, if I were to, well, let's face it, if I were to have done any more than I did, you know, I can't exactly sit here and say that I've done no magic, I've done no miracles, I've completely failed to prove who I was, because that's not true. For those who are enlightened and perceptive, oh, I've been done proving who I am. And that's why YouTube only lets their own employees see my broadcasts. But if I were to be what people have been brainwashed to expect, I mean, my face appears in the clouds. It's obvious. It's been documented. I cannot take a single photo without faces, that is, souls apparatively, fractally appearing in that photo by the hundreds, if not thousands. That's what happens when I take photos. Period. But we've gone and had a few videos of the sky, and it always seems some very brilliant and powerful faces show up on that. But that's, like I said, that's something that someone who's already enlightened, someone who's very perceptive, only they would recognize, because it would have to be taken in with the with all the rest of the data. You see, when Moses came, he came with a message. The people who listened to that message and adhered to it, they had their lives saved. They had their society preserved. They were led to salvation. Same thing is true from 2,000 years ago. It's not a magical pagan sacrifice. There's actual wisdom there that you need to learn to live your life. Now, if Jesus came and everybody had to know he was Jesus, because it was magically, basically the end of free will, everybody who did just shitty stuff their entire lives, just the shittiest people, according to Republican brainwashing, according to the modern failed version of Christianity, they all get a free pass. Because all you got to do is believe in your happy thought and you get to fly, right? All you got to do is believe in Jesus and you get to go to heaven. So at the point when everybody is forced to believe in Jesus, everybody gets to go to heaven? Well, that's what the Bible says. But let's just look at things on a deeper, just a slightly meaningful level. If people are forced to learn a lesson, they're not really learning the lesson. You see, if it takes a good person to recognize good in someone else and to recognize the truth that they're saying, why should that truth be any louder? You see, there shouldn't be a punishment factor involved. There shouldn't be a coercion. This is not a hostage negotiation, okay? This isn't be good or else. And God does not want it to seem that way. This is goodness tends to yield certain common threads. It tends to attract itself. Good people tend to be attracted to other good people. Now, granted, there's not a lot of good people left in the world. But, that's why I'm sitting here with nobody watching, trying to organize my thoughts despite how much rage this causes in me. As opposed to the proper recognition and the progress that could be made because of it. You see, if the world were a little more enlightened, people might think that this person who's been able to present solutions to all of our problems, maybe, just maybe, it would be prudent to help him increase his productivity. No, instead they want to fetter it. They want to inhibit my productivity. They want to stress me out. They want to make sure that I feel like what I'm doing is completely useless. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But whether or not these broadcasts get seen is directly proportional to the likelihood of success for the survival of humanity. And I don't just mean regarding the environment. I don't even limit that to include only the Russian assaults on our society. The fact of the matter is that one issue at a time cannot be addressed. This reactionary strategy that we're left with. I mean, there's another way we could be going about things right now. And it would be effective. And the world would become a better place. People would become more honest with themselves and with each other. If they were just forced to talk about me, because of who I am, because of what I've done already in this life, and because of the knowledge about the past that people this day need in order to heal themselves and in order to heal the burned bridges between each other. But instead, we're nativizing our conflict. We're reacting with no strategy. We're just hoping for the best. As if news reporting existed for the sake of news reporting. You see, we shouldn't be learning about facts and then praying that Robert Mueller will do his job. We should be having a complete societal reformation in which Christians are forced to face their own hypocrisy. Now, unfortunately, on the far right, you got a bunch of people who are essentially Satanists, and they run the church. And on the far left, you've got more people who are also essentially Satanists, and they run the opposition to the church. Neither one of these two major groups wants real Christians to exist. Now, none of those people could successfully debate the validity of their own existence to me. And that's why we have this situation. That's why I would be the solution. And that's why my YouTube channel is suppressed. It's a tactic. You see, everything that fake Christians have done to corrupt Christianity falls before me like reeds in the wind. And the same thing is true with everything that any atheist, Muslim, Satanist, or Jew could possibly say about Christianity. Those powers that are in control of what you are allowed to perceive, they fear me because I take that control right out of their hands and I give it to you in the form of the truth. And all it takes is my wisdom. All it takes is learning what God put me through hell to teach you. And none of their bullshit works anymore. Whether it's the people who told you that Europeans are all a bunch of asshole colonialists, or that Christianity is the faith of war, you can't get away with stupid shit when it comes to me. You don't get to be Old Testament Christians who hate Jews. Not around me, son. You see, I have a gift for debate. And when someone comes to me trying to say some stupid shit, I'm going to respond to them in terms that they cannot help but to understand. And I'm going to make them realize exactly how stupid they are from their perspective. But, you know, instead, what? I have to sit here alone on my couch and smoke cigarettes while random YouTube employees say hi. And to the few people who are actual viewers, let me give you a sit rep on our actual situation, because if anybody can send us some fucking PayPal, now is going to be the last time I ask you for a long time. My wife managed to find a job, but we don't have the gas money for her to make it to work for the next 2 weeks. Speaking of budgeting, I need to take a look at my fucking cigarettes here. I've been doing really good not live streaming, not smoking quite as much. But of course, I start fucking live streaming, and it's like keeping a train of thought with no chat interaction, basically. It's less than optimal. I smoke cigarettes just to kind of help me focus, keep myself in a level state, basically. But, you know, there's a little bit of a magical power that does exist with me as far as my ability to teach. It's in the Bible. And it says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, I am there. And the meaning of that is rather simple. And experiencing that for myself, I suppose, is what's simplified that meaning for me. But it's not hard to understand. It's certainly not hard to explain. When people come to me with their problems, I'm better able to grasp their solutions. When someone comes to me with a question, their need inspires the answer in me. You see, for me to sit here and listen to myself talk, as a man, that's not a healthy thing for me to do. And I am inexorably human. So, when someone should help, when someone should give opinions, when someone should give advice, that's when I should help, should give opinions, should give advice. When people have problems that need solving, when people have questions that need answering. Those things often aren't my problem, and they're not going to occur to me because I don't have those problems. And some things might seem as basic or as complicated as people's problems tend to get. But if it's not something that I'm currently faced with, it's not something that I'm going to think about. It's not something that I'm going to say. And it's more than just a matter of focus. It's a matter of reason. See, there's a simple intellectual and psychological component to it, but then there is an actual spiritual component to it. It's about belief. It's about the rules of the universe. You see, if only I believed in me, I would not have the power to use power. I might still have that power, but I wouldn't be able to use that power, not until I died and went to my own little heaven. But because reality is essentially a series of rules that we all agree upon, there has to be people expecting the answer from me in order for the answer to come out of me. Now, the universe does not work in such a way as people could be brainwashed to believe that somebody has the answers, and then magically they have the answers. Deception is deception, and it does not yield truth. However, when someone attains such a position as, say, an antichrist, for instance, they'd effectively be given that power. They'd be seen as having that power. And basically what it would be was a result of their brainwashing coming to fruition. So instead of, somebody like me revealing all this weird crap that you've been led to believe is a lie, they'd be the person confirming all the weird crap. So all the demons and all the Russian agents and all the psychos with sold souls and all the lies that they spread, the Antichrist would come and say, "Ooh, look, all of this is true, and here's proof." He'd be someone not far off from the ideology of Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin. And people would think that the same thing is happening. But it's just a simple matter of tactics. It's just a simple matter of strategy. A bunch of nonsense presented as truth, as deep truth. Oh, is that stuff that only the truth seekers are allowed to find. A fraud would come and be their voice and make them feel like, oh, that's all the truth. And then guess what? If those people become fascist and take over, those lies essentially become the accepted truth. Mr. Conway, good to see you, sir. I was hoping you'd make it on, considering how long it's been since I've done a broadcast. I was sort of just going on one of them little hiatuses in which I just sit back and observe shit fall apart in my absence. And it does seem that shit very much fell apart in my absence. It seems like even though nobody really watches these fucking broadcasts, just my active participation, just my willingness to fight, seems to be quite a hindrance on the powers of demons overall. You see, when I make videos, it's not like I'm just making videos. I'm seeing a different layer of reality. Not with my eyes. That involves the different power directions, the different origins of the different the rays of vibration. That's what Re is, R-I. Well, that's something I haven't taught for 2,000 years. But suffice to say, when I'm more involved in the video making, I'm more involved in the conflict. When I'm not making videos, chances are I'm not even watching the news. And no, I hadn't been. A week of news went by, and then I turn on, I go, and just loaded the MSNBC channel just to see what had happened in the past week. I'm like, holy fuck. Shit went wild. Is that a coincidence? Maybe. Could it be properly interpreted as a likely coincidence, considering that I've done this before and the same exact kind of shit has happened? Less likely. So the moral of the story, I suppose, is obviously I can't do this shit myself. But it's not just that you can't do it without me. It's more like, well, you can't do it without me. No, it's a very complicated situation in which very few souls, if you will, have graduated basic training. Okay? And if you don't have very many soldiers who've made it out of basic, you're going to get your ass kicked. Right? Now, a war can be won with soldiers and soldiers alone. Soldiers can be trained. Soldiers can know what they're doing. Soldiers can self manage. Soldiers can take initiative. Soldiers know what the general wants. A good soldier knows what the general wants without even being told. But when you get that mighty man on the field, that one guy who can take down 10 other guys, all the other soldiers just seem to have an easier time of it, don't they? It's good motivation. Makes things fun. Makes things interesting. Makes things worthwhile. It's kind of like, oh, okay. Here once again, I pray for something to say, and this weird metaphor starts occurring to me. Do I give up on it, or do I try to just roll with it, assuming that there is some sort of divine wisdom about to come through my face? Yeah, let's roll with that. See if I fucking embarrass myself or whether or not we actually come up with something. It's like an auction house. Okay? Now, some go to the auction house when they think they've become a man. Some go to the auction house to impress their friends, to impress a woman, maybe. But some go to the auction house because they got business to take care of. And now chances are, whether it be cattle or cars, if you're going to that auction house to take care of business, chances are you went to that auction house with your father. And now, you might be pretty good. You might have gone to some kind of training seminars that teaches you how to do real good at auction. You might have had a friend's dad or an uncle, former employer, And they'd take you to the auction, and you'd learn from them how to get yourself a good deal. But then there's that guy sitting there with his dad. And man, they don't bid much. They don't raise their hands a whole lot. But when they do, ooh, they get some good fucking deals. But then as time passes, that guy's dad stops showing up with him. And he still does pretty damn good. He learned all the lessons his father taught him. And he still knows how to get them great deals at the auction. And the other people they know, he's here without his dad. But he was here all those years with his dad. And his dad was here since before any of us remember even coming to the fucking auction. He was here the first day we came, every one of us. But now he's not here anymore. And we went to our training seminars, we read our books. We should know everything there is to know about how to get a good deal at that auction. But for some reason, when we're all uncertain, when we're all quiet, that old man's son raises his little card. And we all think, should we raise our little cards too? He's the old man's son. He gets them good deals. But there's something he can see. And they can't see it. There's value there that he perceives. They can't see it. Because he's just the son. He's not the old man. He's their age. What the fuck could he possibly know? But then, go to his car lot, man. Go to his cattle ranch. Visit his brokerage listings. And man, they got some good deals. They got a 2014 Honda Accord for 10 grand. Fucker runs flawless too. And the other dealers, the other people went to that auction. Man, maybe they came home with something worth talking about. Maybe they didn't. They got good enough deals to pay their bills, buy their boats, pay for their vacations. And maybe some of them probably make just as much money. You know, they'll feel like they came out of things even. They might have to charge a little more. They might have to offer less quality of a product. But you know, some of them gonna make even more money than that old man or his son. And then one day, they go to the auction. And the old man's back. And now, not one of them has been struggling. Everything seems fine from their perspective. Like I said, they just charge a little more money, not put the work in, and they can come out much better than this old man and his son. But they all knew in their hearts they made him make more money than him, but he's their hero. They know in their hearts that he's a better man than they are. And when his son was there, bidding on the same things he was bidding on, they were still hesitant. But that old man came down to the auction years after his retirement. Sickly, you know, man, on a walker, oxygen tube at his nose. But sure enough, even though they basically tried to ignore his son, they tried to deny the talent that was passed down generationally. Old Grandpa gets back in the auction chair. And every time he raised his little hand, every single person at that auction house raised theirs. Oh, we want that too. You see, the son had all the wisdom of the father. He had his inheritance. He was begotten, if you will. But they didn't want to listen to the son because they see him as an equal. And they had their books. They had their training seminars. They had their mentorship programs. What'd they need him for? One man's wisdom passed down from his dad. But you see, they just weren't thinking. They hadn't considered what their fathers did. They hadn't considered what their grandfathers did. You see, this guy, his dad, took him to the auction from the age of fucking 6 months old. Okay? And guess what his dad did? His grandpa. His grandpa took his dad to the auction from the age of 5 years old. And his dad before him. And his dad before him. And these people have been focused on this one particular type of wisdom. We're going to take, I'm going to stick on cars because I know cars. We're going to take the old shitty cars that we know are reliable name brands, that we know are the good models of cars. And we're going to take the ones that need paint, need body work, but that are mechanically sound. And we're going to let the other companies, we're going to let our competitors have that pretty Cadillac with the electrical problem. Oh, and there's a lot of those. Or the Infiniti. Oh, the Infiniti. That G37 that just likes to, you know, make up its own moods. We'll let them have those pretty cars. We're going to do things our way. The way my father taught me. We're going to find the stuff that people normally wouldn't pay much attention to. And we're going to make it run right. And we're going to charge a reasonable price for it. We're going to see ourselves as getting paid for the work that we do, as opposed to the situation that we took advantage of. But those other guys, they got a different way of operating. You know, maybe one of them, his dad owns a dealership. He's the son of the dealership owner, right? But his dad didn't take him every Sunday to that auction house. And he, you know, he went to college for business. He thought he was going to be a hedge fund manager. He thought he was going to be a banker. And then he realized, you know, daddy's already rich. Let me do this shit the easy way. Let me go do what daddy does. And then he wound up at the fucking auction house because he took some seminars and he read a book and he thinks he knows his shit now. Maybe he's got a few years of experience. But while he's focused on greed and finding other means to suit that end, well, he's focused on his own self-interest and not actually interested in integrity and honor in producing a product that him and his dead family would be proud of. He ain't focused on that. He's focused on making money. He's focused on himself. He's focused on making things easier for him. And you know what? His daddy was the same way. What kind of wisdom is he going to have? How many of those cars he's bidding on do you think he's taken apart himself? Hmm? But that old man and his son. And picture like Chip Foose. And old man Foose. These guys, they take these old cars and they make them wonderful. And everybody in town knows. No matter how much we advertise, no matter how many Sunday, no matter how many different commercials on the radio and on the television you hear about our dealerships, there are people who, through nothing but word of mouth, excuse me, hiccups, nothing but word of mouth, won't buy a car from anywhere else but that old man and his son. Because they know. While this one guy was off in college learning how to maximize profit, and while this other guy tried his hand at real estate for a little while and then get back into the car business. And this other guy went to work for ExxonMobil, made a big fortune, and came back, and then he got into the car business. These people took their sweet ass time converting. But, you know. Now they're supposed to believe in automotive restoration, right? Why else would they be at an auction buying old cars? Surely they have a passion for restoring old pieces of metal and preventing humans from blowing up mountains to make their lives more convenient. Oh no, wait, they just want money. So that old man shows up at the auction house. And boy, auctioneer couldn't be happier. Every time that old man, he's really old at this point, dude. Every time he raises his little popsicle stick thing, all the others, well, I want that car too. I want that car too. Well, there's a lot of interesting lessons you can learn from a situation like that. You know, the most obvious being when shit ain't your business, when it's not your specialty, when it's not the primary function of your talents, you're probably better off listening to the advice of someone who's been focused on it a lot longer than you have, who's had generational wisdom passed down. That is, instead of his dad trying to make money and happening to be a car guy so they could make money, his dad was a car guy. And his dad was a car guy. And then because they were car guys, they decided to make money off of being car guys. It's not they wanted to make money, so they decided to be car guys because cars were profitable. No, it's they love restoring cars. They don't like the feeling of getting over on someone. They like the feeling of taking care of someone. But when they go and copy, monkey see, monkey do. They all raise their hand and they try to get that car. And that old man, he didn't come home with a single damn car that day because everybody was all over his shit. Everybody was all over his shit. Then they got their cars. They brought them back to the shops. And then their mechanic comes back with the estimate on repairs. And they're starting to balance the numbers here. And they start wondering, how the fuck did that old man make any money? Because they'll be putting $2,000 into fixing up a car. And then they can only sell it for $4,000 more than what they paid for it. Or else they got to charge twice as much as what the old man's charging right down the street. What the hell? And they see, well, the old man still does the shit himself. He's still back there working on it. And guess what? His son's staying there after close. The store lights are on, off. The store lights are off. The signs are off. The big neon glowing signs are off. But the lights in the garage, in the shop, in the service center, they're on till fucking 11, 12 o'clock at night. They're taking their time, spending as little money as possible, getting every ounce of quality, every ounce of potential out of those auction purchases. And man, the other dealerships paying their certified mechanics $30, $35 an hour. Gotta send them home at 6 o'clock, man. But even then, the numbers ain't adding up. Something's just not right here. Everything we're doing makes sense. We went to our seminars. We got our certified mechanics. We should be owning this auction. We should be burying that old man. Turns out it was his auction. The old man. It was his auction. Now, he wasn't doing nothing shady. He wasn't insider trading, if you will. He wasn't getting a secret report that nobody else could see. He very objectively, very forthrightly, kept himself from having any inside advantage. He paid someone from church. Paid someone who didn't like him very much to run the auction. Paid someone completely objective to oversee things, while he just participated. He just sat there. Waited for the cars that needed his help. Waited for those deals that were just right for him. That car's got good potential. It's a good car. That car deserves a second chance. Not focusing on how that car is going to benefit him. Not focus on, the advantage he can gain from it. What kind of a deal can I give to somebody who needs a car? But even though he did everything right, he took care of the little people. He honestly dealt even with his enemies, with his competition. Nobody would have ever guessed that he owned the auction. All the money he made off of it went to charity. All the advantage he could have gained from owning that auction, all the cheating he could have done, all the insider dealing he could have accomplished, he didn't do any of that. It might have made him more successful. It might have put the competition right out of business. But that's not who he was. He's not the type to rig the system. He just wants to participate as equals. You do your thing, I'm going to do mine. We'll see who's got more integrity. And the playing field is going to show that while it's level. But when it all comes down to it, it all belongs to him to begin with. So I forgot what the purpose of that metaphor was, because I knew it was going to be about an auction. Didn't know if it was going to go anywhere. Just knew it was going to be about an auction, but apparently, yeah. There we have a metaphor. A parable, if you will. Damn it. Excuse me. So yeah. If the father came back, in all his wisdom and glory, it would take nothing. It would take no effort, no brains at all. Oh, he did that? Oh, we'll do this. Oh, he's doing... Okay, we'll do this. Especially if they knew it's his fucking auction. Oh. They wouldn't even have a choice on what to bid on. They would just be waiting for him to bid. Oh, okay, we'll bid too. He owns the auction. He owns the auction. But you know what? If they knew all that, they wouldn't have waited for his ass. Oh wait, his son. That's the auction owner's son. They'll bid right when he bids. They'll take his cars. What a pain in the ass that would be, huh? But if you're that old man, it's not the way you'd run things. You'd send your son there. He learned what he learned so that he could have his own thing. And your wife's sister's husband been running that auction for 40 fucking years or whatever. Wife's sister's husband. Gabriel the Archangel. Yeah, that's him. Auctioneer. But you'd send the son. The old man would send the son. And the son would be an example of just what you should do at the auction. But not everybody's going to follow the son. They knew his old man was smart. They knew there wouldn't be an auction if it wasn't for his old man. Most of them didn't think about that, though. But they couldn't compete on the same level. Oh, if it came to relying on word of mouth, referrals from happy customers. Let's just say those luxurious, overpriced automobiles tend to have some problems after a couple of years. And the reason why those people are all over TV is because if it wasn't for that, their shit wouldn't fly. So they got to keep on telling you over and over again the same shit. Every single fucking weekend, it's the same shit. Every single day on the TV, every single day on the radio, it's the same damn thing over and over again. Because they know. Some of the people that hear that, they're still going to go back to the old man and his son. And they know that when people come to them, they ain't going to come back unless they feel like there's some kind of brand, unless they feel like there's some kind of bandwagon effect, unless they're made to feel like, well, there really is no other competition. This is the way you want to go. This is the big dealership in town. And then, well, if they really wanted to be nasty, they could say, well, the old man and his son have been lying to you. And they really own the auction. You shouldn't trust them. Even though everything they've been doing is forthright. Everything they've been doing is honest, as far as them and their customers go. That old man owns the auction. So all these cars that we sold you, it's actually their fault. It's actually his fault. It's all the old man's fault. All this shit that we've been doing. All these lies that we've told. All these bullshit cars that we sold people. Well, he's the one that owns the auction. Why don't you ask him? And so maybe one day some reporters, maybe a lawyer, maybe somebody goes and asks him, what do you think that old man's going to say? He's going to say, I offered all kinds of cars for sale. Anybody could buy them. None of them were brand new cars. None of them were sold as perfect. None of them were advertised as being trouble-free. Nobody said it was going to be easy. And you want to come to me blaming me because your customers aren't happy, because your cars aren't running right, because these things that you invested the wrong way into for the wrong reasons aren't working out so well. And the old man's going to ask them a question back. Did you see my son sitting there? Yeah, we saw your son. Did you ever notice the cars that he was buying? Oh yeah, we noticed the cars he was buying. Not quite the cars that we like. And understanding that they knew exactly why his son makes money, why people want to buy cars from his son, why his son's cars fucking run and keep running. They saw the way this old man's son was doing things, and they chose to keep doing things the way they were doing it. They chose. They had free will. Now, they could have taken them same cars, and they could have spent the money that it took to make them perfect. But then obviously they would have had to charge too much, and those cars wouldn't have been very easy to sell. People would have been hesitant to buy. And go buy a brand new car for that much. Not gonna pay 22 grand for an 06, you know? But they all want to go to the old man and say, oh, we found out that you own the auction. These cars that we did according to the way that our profit model shows us we should do. You know, if you get procedural, it doesn't mean you're a fucking con artist anymore. It just means you're following procedure, right? No, you're a fucking con artist. But these cars, our customers aren't happy with them. Our customers are getting stranded on the side of the road. Our customers are waking up in the morning and not being able to go to work because the shit don't start. Our customers are dropping like flies because of the lack of safety. Old man, it's all your fault for selling us these bad cars. Old man gonna say, what the fuck are you morons talking about? I offered the cars for sale. You're the one who chose to buy them. Now, my son was sitting in that auction house, just like one of you. But he had better values. He had more integrity. And he had honor. That's what made him successful. And if you had values, integrity, and honor, maybe you could sell those cars that you're selling. Maybe you could fix them up properly and they'd be running right. And you could get the money you needed to get out of them. But you didn't follow my son's example. Should I have used some neon lights? Should I have had a sign, the big arrow, mounted to the back of his seat at the auction, pointing down at the top of his head, auction owner's son, here. Then, what would you have done? Would you adopt the values of the auction owner's son? Would you try to emulate his honor and integrity. Or would you just wait until you saw what the fuck he was gonna do and raise your little popsicle? What would the old man say? If I'd have put them fucking neon lights there, and everybody knew that that was my son, and everybody knew that I was the auction owner, the whole damn thing would collapse. The auction would be out of business in no time. There'd be BMWs and Infinities and all kinds of modern technological pieces of shit and all their glitches. They would just be piling up in the stockyard. And everybody be taking the Hondas and the Ford Focuses and all the good little reliable cars. Then what would happen? They just raised their popsicle sticks, man. They didn't figure out what the son was doing. They didn't figure out what the old man taught him. How to take care of the customers, not just take advantage. But the customers, they're fucking customers, aren't they? They're going to see these other dealerships. There's a Honda, there's a Honda. There's a Focus, there's a Focus. There's a Camry, there's a Camry. The son's going to wind up losing business. Is that the son's fault? Did the son fuck up? The son slacking? Are his ethics lapsing? No. They went and copied the son. Signed up for all the great deals, right? But they were not emulating the son. So they just balanced the numbers. Oh, well, we're paying less for these cars, and we're just going to put the same amount of money we always put into the damn things, restoring them. And we're just going to turn them right the fuck back over and sell them. We're going to put less money into them and sell them at the same price. We're going to make people think that these are apples to apples. When it's more like apples to worms. And you know what? Son's going out of business. They bury him. Oh, the word of mouth. It can only go so far. You got your TV and radio advertisements. Same cars, same prices as the old man and his son. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. So what happens? Well, maybe the son fights back. Maybe the son recalculates, re-strategizes. Maybe he just decides to retire and take over the auction. But one thing's for sure. There's a lot of people stuck in bullshit cars. And despite the blame that gets tossed around, maybe it's only the tow truck drivers that know. It wasn't the old man's fault. It was all these bullshit dealerships. Everybody's got their own interpretation. Everybody's got their own opinion. Some people think it was just rigged. Some people think the only reason why the son was successful, the only reason why he was able to help anybody, because he was cheating. Because the father owned the auction. And they can't find any evidence of foul play. They can't find any evidence of insider knowledge being traded. But that's what they'll think. And then some of them think, man, he must be just like a really good mechanic. He must just be a genius. It's not that he's honestly hell-bent on fixing everything wrong with every little car. He's just really good at making it appear that way. The cats are trying to raid the cat food bag, and that's annoying, so hold on for a second. Oh! All right. Hold on. Okay. Oh. Is Elon Musk on the way up or down? ABC News Australia. 30 minutes before I started the broadcast, which has been on for 2 hours now. How about that? So let me just take a step back and see what the hell just happened. What just happened here was I don't want to say struggling, but I was having to have background pre-planning of thoughts and things that I was about to say. And I was somewhat forcing myself to remember the different things I wanted to talk about, right? Okay. A willful process, okay? Conscious process. And then as I sort of prayed for the next thing to say, I was like, God, just guide me with what's the message here, you know? Before realizing any details that would make it, say, a rational thing to begin to speak about, you know? Like, if you're going to start to open your fucking mouth and speak, you should have a plan on what you're about to say. In this instance, for me, not so much. All that had occurred to me, it's like an auction house. I just, somehow, the story managed to fall into place. Wonder why that could be. Anyways. Pretty good parable, though, I think. Made sense to me. What do you guys think? I see we still have a few people watching. I need feedback, too. If I didn't have feedback actually expressed to me, I would be left with nothing but psychic impressions. And if you're left with nothing but psychic impressions, you only have two choices. You can have no idea about the validity or accuracy of those impressions because you lack any basis of comparison, or you can succumb to a demonic spirit guide, which means that if you're someone with psychic ability who hasn't taken the time to, and I mean time, years, decades it takes, to compare instincts and impressions against logic and likelihoods, and actually catalog and try to categorize different levels of sensation and focus, and through intensive scrutiny and extrapolation of data, determine over time, eventually, what is and isn't a psychic image versus something that's randomly occurring to your imagination versus something that's been suggested or otherwise. If you haven't gone through this process and you seem to have this ability, you have a demon. The interpretation of psychic energy is not something that comes easily. Brains do not speak the same language. The way that your thoughts form right now, whether it be in English or Spanish or whatever, when the thoughts actually come through in your brainwave pattern, they're not in concise English phrases that can be interpreted. They come in prefactoral echoes and overlaps. It's a lot of noise. And it takes years and years of observation to be able to slightly make sense of any of it. And if you don't have... Laney! No, sir. If you don't have the experience committed to deciphering those types of impulses, yet somehow you're able to, you must consider that you're being assisted by a being who is older than you, who has had the time to sift through those different impulses. You see, it can take thousands of years from the point that someone becomes psychic to the point where they can actually wield psychic power. So if someone is wielding psychic power in a way that indicates that they have that level of control over it, they are being assisted by something that has been doing it for thousands of years. You see, a demon who has been observing mankind for 5,000 or more years, it's very simple for them to see the patterns. It's very simple for them to attach emotion to phrasing and echo, and to immediately translate every single thought that comes out of a human mind. And, you know, some of this also goes down to experience of the patterns that human behavior follows. But your average 15-year-old girl with a bunch of piercings and a little pentagram tattoo on her neck, they don't have the vast plethora of experiences required to wield the power or the wisdom that they seem to have. Psst. Fuck are y'all doing? Oh, one of them's in the cabinet and the other is getting them. Oh, jeez. Anyways. So, does anybody have any questions of a non-corporeal nature? At this point, I'm going to have to take a little break. Although, actually, no, it's 5 a.m. I should go ahead and end the broadcast, shouldn't I? Well, I suppose I'll try to hold my bodily functions for a few more minutes. Oh, God. Okay. Just Just one more cigarette. Just one more cigarette. That's all I'm going to smoke on the broadcast. Just one more cigarette. Just one more. One more. One more. When this pack is out, I have only two options awaiting me. Either one of you guys is going to send us some money, or I'm going to take the title to the CRV down to the loan place and get myself in a bunch more debt. Because at this point, the phones, the electricity, and the internet could be shut off at any time. Our car insurance just lapsed. The loan place is the only place that's doing me any favors right now. They're actually being very accommodating. But my wife started her new job today, or yesterday. And by the end of the day, we realized it's going to take about another $100 in gas for her to get back and forth for the next 2 weeks. Okay, am I back? Lacey. Oh, I just saw your chat, Lacey. Sorry. Okay, I think I'm back. Let me know when you guys join us. Gonna be wrapping up here shortly. But my broadcast just went. Everybody dropped back to 0 people watching now from 3. And then I had the little reconnect thing go on. Now I'm reconnected. Let's see if anybody else can reconnect to the reconnectedness. Or not. Oh, Conway is still there. Still says 0 people watching, but yeah. Why even bother screenshotting shit anymore? I don't know. We don't have a fucking consumer protection agency. We don't have a fucking cyber security chief. Just, because who needs that shit? But anyways, hi Lacey. Sorry I didn't see you. Say hello. Thanks for coming and watching for a little while. And greets and meet fellow humans from Vibes of Truth. You know, Conway, it's kind of interesting how, since this final stage of suppression has happened, how we've had this influx of just one new person at a time. Isn't that just fascinating? But for some reason, despite the excuses that I sense that have been made regarding suppressing me, it turns out that it's the Trumpists who are losing their shit and committing obscene acts of violence. Funny how that works. But then again, I remembered explaining that when I vocalize my urge to beat the shit out of someone, and then refrain from doing so, well, much more dramatic things ensue. So when it comes to the point that I've more or less had enough, just getting fucking tired of it all, feeling like society doesn't quite deserve the help I'm trying to give it. And then I just say, hands off. Just stop watching the news for a week or so. Just play my video game. Keep myself occupied. Hell, I've been job hunting actually. Until my wife got hired, I don't want to make too much about it. There's nothing out here for me. Like nothing. The only option I even have is going and talking myself into selling used cars at a place that isn't hiring. Like, they're not advertising that they're hiring. I would just have to go in there and convince them that I could do something that I'm not really sure I could do. Being able to sell brand new Hondas and being able to sell used fucking cars are two completely different things. I've proven that I am not good at selling used cars, but I can sell the fuck out of some new Hondas. But anyways, and then they had a little Halloween thing at my daughter's school, and I got reminded of just why I'm fucking disabled. First of all, driving the SUV, driving our CRV through the potholes that it takes to get out of my house, a long ass gravel road, right? That gets me right in the middle of my fucking spine and sets me into an irritable state. And then just having to stand up for about 20 fucking minutes, I started to get twitches and like, and then before I knew it, my lumbars were spasming and I had to go home early. So that's what I got to deal with when I start deluding myself into thinking I can just go take a job, just go back to work. Oh yeah, your fucking spine's broken in 3 places, asshole. You might want to second think that. Yeah. You might want to reconsider. I I mean, fuck. You know, the only time I really get sleep is when I'm just sick of not being able to do anything productive. And it just depresses me. Fuck it, I'm just gonna sleep. If I can think of shit to do, if I have anything to accomplish, I don't get tired. Hell, I can be like either almost falling asleep or dead asleep. As soon as there's something to do, something to talk about, something interesting, something to think about, boop, wide awake. Now, however, if I wake up and there's nothing to do, nothing to think about, just give me my coffee and shut the fuck up. Anyway. So, yeah. If anybody has the ability to send us a donation or two right now would be the time that it's very, very much needed. Hopefully we'll catch up on bills before Christmas comes around. But, bingo. Ugh. Anyways, some more news on the financial front. I found a really, 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 really cheap piece of land that seems like it'll work just fine. However, it's not going to be a viable retail location. It's not on a main street like the other pieces of land I've been looking at and showing y'all. But it's cheap enough to be sort of like a stepping stone, if you will. Like, if I could get this piece of land, it was vacated because of a flood. If I build a flood-proof house on there, get the value back up, and then take out the equity on it, there are still, and probably going to be at that point in the future, a few more pieces of land on locations that are retailable. That is on main streets in Zachary, where people drive to do their daily shopping. Now Zachary, again, not a big town, but it's a very very economically active town. There's a lot of people who retired from other places that came here, and there's a lot of landowners and their family that live here. And it's it's the highest per capita credit area in Louisiana. And of all the small towns you can go to in this whole region, you will find few with as bustling of a retail center. You know, usually it takes a bigger city to have the kind of retail center that this place has. But it's not only because of the economic status of Zachary itself, but because of the geographic location of Zachary being sort of a couple of steps north of the state capital. The surrounding areas, including southwest Mississippi, are all in range of this one town as far as doing a lot of different shopping tasks. So a lot of these different places from the small towns, a lot of these different people from the small towns don't have the same stores in their town, so they come to Zachary, right? And there's a lot of real low traffic, easy ways to get from those towns to here, so it's no surprise that it's no big hassle for them. But let's see, I have this basically the most efficient 3-bedroom house plan possible, which includes the ability to convert the kids' rooms into a garage in the future. And this is a flood-proof design that has 2 bathrooms, kitchen, and laundry room, all on the same wet wall. That's right here. Dingo, for fuck's sake. And what I was planning on doing is where these orange highlighter marks are, I was going to enclose what would otherwise be the front porch, or the side porch actually, and it's going to wind up being the front porch instead. The house is going to go sideways, and it's going to be sort of like a semi-retail but mostly wholesale breeding operation. So those orange things are basically stacks of aquariums. And this particular design is part of a series of modular flood-proof buildings that can be deployed at various levels of utility and luxury. They are pre-manufactured components, basically a series of buildings designed upon the principle of interchangeable parts, so that when erected, they can be rapidly deployed into multiple configurations. So you can have, your basic 3-bedroom house. You can have a 1-bedroom studio. You can take the 2 models that come from 1-bedroom studio and 3-bedroom house and make yourself a nice house with a garage with an apartment above it. And of course, the larger units and the smaller units combine in multiple configurations to make multiple types of houses. And the way that they interlink provides numerous options as far as interior spaces go, but also as far as breaking up the look of the exterior so that the various models of the houses don't all look like the same house. They look like custom built, normal, regular, different houses. But they all can be built much cheaper, much faster, and they're all flood-proof. Now, I'm as magical as I need to be. I think I've explained that. When I felt like I needed a lawyer more than anything, my wife just happened to land a job at a law office. And, some tests of faith were less than fruitful. And that didn't work out very well, but that was never a contingency or a likely success scenario. That wasn't a backup plan. That wasn't a, everything else is failing. Let's rely on this kind of thing. My backup plan is property development. It is beginning a company that provides flood-proof buildings, disaster-resistant buildings of all types, actually. And combining this enterprise with an aquacultural and agricultural ecological restoration force, if you will. The idea being to use the interoperability as well as the funding to help co-progress objectives. So, if you're trying to make money off of land, you can also improve it. If you're trying to improve the land, you can also make money off of it. Overlapping interests. A lot of different ways that helps network and establish business relationships with people who are doing similar things and expanding the ideology across the practice. Basically, getting more people who are already at the auction to act a little more like the sun. But first, the sun needs a car lot. It's kind of hard to set an example on how to run a car lot when you just got a car and it ain't even for sale. But so that's the plan for now, is to somehow, some way get over our present hump, which, again, please, somebody, if anybody can spare some fucking PayPal money, now would be the time. But should we be able to keep everything on for the next couple of weeks, things should be getting better from there. At which point, I will try to leverage every fucking thing I can to get this piece of land. Once I get the land, it's between basically the land itself and the Small Business Administration. I'm going to have to use an SBA loan, most likely, to actually develop the land. And from there, I will set up or reset up my breeding operation so that the ERCR facility can actually be built. So I'll need to basically pre-establish my ability to develop land and build the structure on a basic level. And I'm going to start selling fish and coral from the house, basically, in order to gain the credit that I will need to purchase a slightly bigger property from there. Well, not slightly bigger, just a better located property. And then we'll have the breeding operation at the house combined with the breeding operation at the store. And what I will very likely wind up doing is having the grow out, just the ugly space taking stuff, and just keep all that at the house, and then have everything experimental and interesting all up at the store for people to check out when they want to, Anyways. But something very interesting I wanted to tell y'all about before I go, and about to have to go. Trini, you awake? Yeah, we're kind of close here. And I think I can cough one more time before I pee on myself. Ow. Oh, okay. That was the one time. Be warned, pants. Okay. So, a few months ago, I think it was, I was on the broadcast software with the maps showing the different plans I have for the Louisiana coastal and flood absorption type restorations. Basically, what I was talking about was terracing, broad scale terracing, and sort of renaturalization of terrain in order to revitalize it so it can not only grow crops better, or again if it's not producing right now, but so that the runoff as far as fertilizer and chemicals goes gets absorbed by the ecosystem in the water before it gets into a major river and then gets put out to the ocean. Now, part of me is like, this is genius. This needs to be done. This is a fucking no-brainer. Why isn't this being done already? How haven't people figured this out the moment they had fucking, like, satellite images? Extreme aerial images. High altitude images. And in the back of my head, I'm like, am I full of shit? Is it just not going to work? Am I thinking too loftily here? Huh? Well, in Australia, of all places, what a coincidence, there's this old guy who just recently passed away, about a month ago, I think. But he's become of pretty well-known fame in Australia for revitalizing land in exactly the same way that I've been talking about. Permaculture. Yeah, Conway's already familiar with it, because I think it's the Dutch that are doing it too, right? Yeah. So, in Louisiana, one wouldn't think that this is something that needs to be done, right? In Texas, in like North Texas, you got a broad, wide, sloping plain, and you got one little fucking creek going through it. Austria. Very interesting. So, you got a bunch of dry, shitty land, and you got a creek going through it. what do? Well, you need to divert the creek to cover more of the land. The problem is going to be evaporation. So you need plant cover to shade the water. Okay? That reduces evaporation, and at the same time, plants are a lot more interesting than people give them credit for. You see, during the times that there's a lot of moisture, the plants are going to absorb a lot of moisture. But during the dry periods, moisture actually comes out of the plants and back into the soil and the surrounding atmosphere. Now, this isn't, something they're doing on purpose. This is just the result of basic atmospheric reactions. But think of it as like the large area of plant life as being sort of a sponge. And that sponge can absorb more water than just the dirt by itself. And then as it dries out, when that grass dies on the tip, when that tree turns brown at the leaves, the roots stay alive. They preserve that moisture down in the ground. And because of this, every morning when that dew point is reached, the soil itself gets moistened. Now, in Australia, in dry, arid areas, it's obvious that this works. It's been proven that this works. There are scientists collecting concrete data about this in Australia now, doing the exact data that I would need to do to get my funding here from the state. Hopefully I'll be able to use their data. But in Louisiana, it seems, pointless, right? Until you realize the difference between the way things are naturally and the way things are now. And there's a lot of opportunities in just the bends of the Mississippi River, okay, where there's just a whole lot of land that got cleared out right there. And there's just a bend in the river. There's no chemical plant or nothing. Just a bend in the fucking river and nothing there. Perfect opportunity for basically a man-made swamp to compensate for all of the swamps that we built on top of. You see, what we did wrong in Louisiana that causes all the flooding around here is we channeled the water too much. We've got the water going in too specific of places. And then when it doesn't fit in those specific places, it just spills out all over everything. But if you go from the creeks and the streams, wherever there's land next to it, and just make a little fish breeding, an aquaculture business there, and design that aquaculture business along the lines of how those Australians have been revitalizing their landscape. Design that aquaculture business to absorb some of the water, to be maintainable at various levels, and to clean the water before it goes back. You'll stop flooding. You'll improve farmland as a whole in this area, because that moisture will be absorbing into the dirt and staying here instead of being washed out into the ocean. And then every time it does floods, that moisture gets spread around. Those nutrients get spread around. It's a very healthy way for a farming area to operate. And just the smallest flood will do a whole lot more good. And that's all you'll have to deal with, because the land's absorbing fucking water like it's supposed to. You don't have to rely on it, and you don't have to deal with the catastrophic floods. But then on top of that, these side tracks for the water are going to clean the water. And that's going to improve the ocean. That's going to improve tourism. That's going to improve food production. That's going to improve the health of humanity. So, what are the arguments against this again? Anyways, that's all for now. I gots to go. Thanks for watching, y'all. Don't forget to click the like button. I see quite a lot of people have done so already. Thank you very much. And just a reminder, if anybody can send some support, we're really in need of it right now. Thanks. Y'all take it easy. Don't take it all. Peace. Now I'm going to figure out how to end the live stream.